Firstly, Sam, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your journey in business? Obviously, you're well known in the fitness industry, but from a business perspective, do you want to just tell us about, 28 by Sam Wood and where that came about, and what about the steps before that?
Yeah, it definitely hasn't always been successful. I'm incredibly proud about what's happened in the last 7 years, but prior to that, Dion, I've always been in fitness. So I've been in fitness for 22 years, starting as a personal trainer. I was a contractor, which is sort of this way that you can baby step your way into having your own business. You have to pay the gym owner rent. He's your landlord or she's your landlord. But you don't have too many other considerations or headaches to worry about. It's really, can I get the clients in? That's my revenue. And then if I pay my rent each week, they're my overhead. So it's business in its simplest form, but it's a nice foray, I think, into understanding marketing and tax and all of these sort of basic business principles. And I always wanted to have my own business. I always, I loved working for myself as a trainer, but I wanted something more. So when I was 26, I started my own business. I opened a business called Gecko, which was Australia's first ever kids gym. So I was 26. It was, 2006. And I had great success with one location. We hired an old 500 square metre garage in Bayside in Melbourne, and I had hundreds of kids enrolled in after school programs and birthday parties and holiday programs and footy camps. And as a one-off location, it was incredibly successful. Incredibly successful relative to what I'd been earning as a personal trainer.
Yep.
But then my dream was to franchise that or duplicate that and have multiple locations. And that was a real struggle. We went down the franchise path. I went down the licensing path initially, where we would license the concept to existing gyms. So they would start running Gecko programs in their group exercise rooms. We'd put in the equipment kit and the coaches would be wearing Gecko uniforms, and we'd give them a training manual and coaching manual, and from a marketing perspective and a programs perspective. But gyms would just have so many other priorities. The kids' fitness was probably, priority number 10 on a list of, what was most important or what was bringing in the most money or what was the biggest opportunity. And I'd go back to visit these sites and the equipment would be a bit banged up in the corner, wasn't being taken care of particularly well. There'd been high staff turnover, so all of those coaches that I'd initially trained had moved on, and now there were new trainers taking the programs that I'd never even met. So it just wasn't working, and these were quite expensive learnings. We were in sort of 30 gyms around Australia, and I'd set up a head office and had a head of operations sort of helping me execute on these grand plans. And so then we went down the franchise path, where the actual franchisee was financially invested in the success of it. And they were very passionate themselves about kids and wellness. It wasn't just an add-on to the gym. So they were PE teachers who wanted an extra revenue stream, or personal trainers who were looking to fill a void in that after school time slot where they weren't typically that busy. And that worked much better. But it was still a really good lesson to me to just how many franchises you needed to sell to make that a profitable business. And because it was taking so long to learn that, I was burning through cash. Now, I guess the other lesson for me, Dan, I got an investor. I didn't sort that investor. They approached me as someone that liked me and sort of always, I used to train this gentleman, his wife, his kids. I'd become really close with their family. They were a very wealthy family. They saw my hunger, they saw my aspirations, they saw my drive, and they were happy to help me facilitate it. But it started to get a bit out of hand, to be honest. I was about 800 grand in debt, and the business was just turning a profit with, 20, 30 franchises by the time I drew a salary and paid a couple of people and we had an office rent. So it wasn't a typically good business model. I was very stubborn. I was, kept my head down, kept wanting to prove it. I also had an adults gym, which was kind of just helping me fund the losses of the other, of the other Gecko business. Wasn't a very, one just feeding the other. And then everything changed when I went on The Bachelor. So in 2015, it wasn't this grand plan necessarily to go on TV and then turn that into successful business, but I had a couple of members of the gym who were very, very intrigued with while I was still single. And they were like, Sam, you should go on this TV show. And I said, oh, that's ridiculous. But they were quite persuasive. Anyway, to appease them, I applied to go on the show, never thinking anything would come of it. And unbelievably, out of 12,000 guys that applied to be on The Bachelor, I got the gig.
Yeah.
And so off I went, had to sort of leave Gecko and my gym for 16 weeks and wasn't able to tell anyone where I was going or why, which was a bit of a weird concept.
Yes.
And I told them I was going to America to do a business course, which they seemed to think that was a bit weird that you haven't mentioned it with only a couple of weeks' notice. But I guess that's okay, and we'll manage without you because I guess we have to. And off I went, and eventually it all sort of came out that that's what I was doing, and everyone was, "What the hell's going on here?" But it it was a crazy ride, huge TV show here in Australia. The finale of my season was the second most watched TV show on Australian television after the AFL Grand Final for 2015.
Yeah.
And instant notoriety and recognition everywhere I went. TV ads, billboards, trams and trains going past with my head on it, and could barely walk down the street without, people screaming out, Sam, The Bachelor, can I have a selfie? It was a real, I wasn't really ready for it, to be honest. The producers and the people that run the show warn you, but until you sort of experience it firsthand, I don't think any warning's going to do it justice. You really, need to be in the furnace, I guess, to understand just how intense it is. But we're not here to talk about The Bachelor, but I think it is important to sort of give people a bit of background just to how big it was and what a sort of rise in recognition and sort of celebrity it was.
But it's an important part of the springboard of that journey, I would have thought.
Yeah, it is, Dion. And I mean, what started happening almost immediately was my social media following grew significantly. And lots of people would see that I had a gym and I was into fitness. And so lots of inquiries were coming in. Sam, can you help me with workouts or eating plans or whatever it was? And I'd always looked at, when I first launched 28, which was February of 2016, there was only really 2 online fitness programs in Australia of note. And that was Michelle Bridges and Kayla Itsinas. Both of which I held in very high regard, and both of which I'd heard wonderful stories of the size of their businesses and the success. And so that's where the idea was born. The idea was I think I can do something along those lines. So got together a tech team, put all my own money into it to get it all going, and launched what was initially just a website, 28bysamwood.com, all my workout ideas, recipes, some motivation and mindfulness. But it was really all of the principles that I lived by and had seen work with my one-on-one clients over a 15-year career to that point, put online. And lots of follow-up and accountability and motivation stuff in there. So you're really looking out for them. And it was all in a way where they could do it from home. I'd spoken to so many people over the journey that were really needing to get themselves into shape. And the more I spoke to them, the more I could sort of see that they gyms were really good at getting fit people fitter, but these people didn't start at all. You know, they were very intimidated by that gym situation, the cost, everyone looking at you. You got to get the convenience factor of getting there and getting a park and getting in the gym and getting those workouts done consistently. So 28 was created that you could do the entire thing from home, and none of the workouts were more than 28 minutes. So you just needed half an hour a day to do quick workouts with me from the comfort of your own lounge room, either on your desktop or iPad or on your phone. And within 6 weeks, we had 5,000 subscribers paying $50 a month.
Yeah, right.
And never in my wildest dreams did it just exploded.
Yeah.
So the finale of The Bachelor aired in October 2015, and we launched on the 1st of Feb 2016. And by the end of March, we had a business that was turning over, $2.5 million a year.
Yeah, wow. And suddenly you've gone from having the business experience that you've had to this, which I imagine that was quite eye-opening when you see not just the volume, but in terms of suddenly you've got a scalable business too, right?
100%.
And that's a bit of a game changer.
Well, this was the thing with Gecko. I mean, I had some really wonderful clients who cared about me a lot, and they were very successful business people that could afford a personal trainer 3 or 4 times a week. And, they were watching what I was doing with Gecko, and through their care for me, they were like, Sammy, you just can't duplicate yourself. And this is the problem. You can have one great gym in Hampton, but there's only one you. And they were almost too nice to tell me matter-of-factly that this wasn't going to work, or it wasn't going to work anywhere near to the degree that I was hoping. What 28 did was it did allow me to clone myself. It allowed me to transport myself through the technology that now exists, which is so cutting edge and so quick and so easy to use, to do a one-on-one workout with people in the comfort of their own lounge rooms at the touch of a button, or give them nutrition advice or sleep advice or motivational videos to start every day or whatever it might have been. And I really was able to create the personal trainer in their pocket for the fraction of a gym membership cost. It was $12 a week, and they got their food and their workouts and their motivation and their accountability literally every single day. And we fast forward 7 years later. I mean, I can tell there's lots of ups and downs and a roller coaster, of course, in between, as there always is, Dion. But, we grew the business to 28,500 members. Yep. And then we were acquired or did a merger just over a year ago now, where the business was valued at 71 million. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that would happen. I'm still heavily involved with the business. I'm working in my office here still every day, and we've got some really exciting sort of what's next things happening. It's not the end. It was a merger where we're building out other platforms. We're looking at other markets. We've got spin-off retail products in this wellness space happening with protein ranges and that kind of stuff, launching in Woolies later this year. So there's some really exciting things happening where 28's kind of the greatest success story, and I guess the hub of this ecosystem, if you like. But it's definitely not the end of the journey, but one that I'm super proud of to date.
Yeah. So when you go from, you're talking sort of 7 years ago, from starting from scratch to now, that's obviously exceeded what you thought, and how that would play out. That merger, and it's with myDNA, right, is the company that you're working with there. That gives us a glimpse into, I assume, where this goes in the future in terms of analyzing genetics and those types of things. What is the future there that you see? Because presumably it goes across food and medicine and all sorts of aspects of people, personalization. What's your vision there?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly where we're heading. I mean, there is nothing. The detail of personalization that you can get from your genetic makeup is greater than anything else. And the thing that people want with any kind of online wellness product is greater personalization. Now, whether that's through AI or through genetic integration, there's a number of different ways that you can do that. But we're starting to do some very simple stuff in that space. People doing a very simple swab test, genetic test, which is allowing us to get genetic markers that show whether or not they should consume caffeine before a workout, whether it will improve or decrease their performance, whether or not they're a power and endurance athlete, so the type of training that would give them the best results, allowing them to train smarter, not harder. Certain food intolerances, some people are genetically predisposed to perform better if they go to bed earlier, get up earlier. So from sleep to nutrition to training type and everything in between, there's a myriad of medical factors as well, which is what myDNA have historically and continue to do brilliantly, predominantly in a government and a B2B space. Where we are able to add real value is our expertise in that B2C space and our expertise in how do you convert what is sometimes a lot of data and a lot of information into layman terms, and most importantly, into a usable program.
Yeah.
It's all very well to get all this information and be a bit overawed by it, but to actually go, look, we've done a test that could give us 70 genetic markers if we want, but we're just going to pick the 6 that tell you about sleep, caffeine, training type, whatever it might be, nutrition. And these are the 6 that you can start to implement immediately to improve your performance. Or as you said, Dion, go to a new level of personalization that no other sort of data or platform allows you to do.
Yeah, because to me, that just seems really exciting. Like the idea that you're going to be able to get from a user perspective, like all that data that you're talking about, most people who I presume don't necessarily care about the data, but they care about what the data tells them, right? The functional parts that, tell them, they get that reminder, you need to eat X, Y, Z now, or you get a reminder on your phone for this meal, and it's the meal that you should be eating based on what you need at that time. Like that is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing, and it's interesting because DNA testing has changed so much in the last 3 years.
Yeah,
the cost of doing a personalized DNA test 3 to 5 years ago was about $500. You can now do a test for 70. We've all been through COVID. Our comfort levels with doing a swab test and sending it off for a result has changed so dramatically in the last few years. That used to be a bit of a daunting, what am I doing experience. Now we do it without batting an eyelid, So, there's a real sort of comfort level around cost and the actual procedure. And I mean, the great thing is we've got this wonderful 28 family that trust us and like us, and we've been working with some of these people for years and helping them with their wellness. So for us to introduce this concept to them, they're really receptive. And we've got about 650,000 people in our database through the 28 journey of 7 years, and they're loving that they can be sort of the first cabs off the rank, if you like, that get this cutting edge technology and the ability to get these results. So yeah, it's been really exciting. It's something we're obviously going to take much broader eventually, but at the moment it's really just a wonderful personalization add-on or value add to our existing customers, and it's almost a great way that we can reward them for their loyalty over the journey while we have lots of learnings ourselves. What are some of the challenges people have with this kind of thing? How do we speed up the execution of getting from, the time from getting the test to getting the results to these people? What's the best way to deliver this information so that they can start implementing it straight away? But yeah, like you say, John, it's bloody exciting.
Yeah. In terms of that 7 years, you start off and it's almost an overnight success in some respects in terms of that subscription you get, and then a few years later you've got that sort of the business has been sold or merged and it's got a valuation of 70 odd million. But no doubt there's been tough times as well. What was the most challenging part of that journey?
Mate, there's been plenty. I mean, there's been lots of different challenges from the changes in algorithm and costs of digital marketing. So all of a sudden you've got this model where you're acquiring customers through your Facebook ads or Instagram ads for $50, and then it's costing you $200. And you're very much at the mercy of this platform that you don't have full control over. And I guess it's like anything. It's going through the different scales. Like as a team of 8 with this many members, it's really easy to manage. But to go to that next level of 20,000 plus members, you're really going to have to build out the team. So we outsourced a lot early on, and then we brought it all in house. Full control over not just having a website, but having a multi-million-dollar app, having our whole tech team, our whole marketing team, our whole digital marketing team in house. So it was kind of just going through those growth pains where it's costing you a lot more money than it's making you, and you're always sort of playing catch up. Yeah. And then you just have these natural plateaus. Whether it's through there's been a myriad of them. We were sort of the third player into this space, but it didn't take long for lots of people to cotton on, and then we were one of 10 and one of 20. COVID was a fascinating time for us. We were very uniquely positioned to help a lot of people because we were this at-home platform, and it was wonderful from a growth perspective, but it also meant every man, woman, and their dog brought out an online fitness program. Every gym had to have an online version. So all of a sudden there was 2,000 players all going after the same target market with the same digital ads and principally saying we offer the same thing. And it was a bit of a race to the bottom on price point. So it was much harder to differentiate yourself as a premium product in this space. So there's always been, and at the moment, it's a really tough economic time for people. So looking at your subscription and kind of going, well, this one's got to go is one of the first things people are doing. So, yeah, I mean, the churn challenge is always real. We really pride ourselves on the fact we've got a great product, we've got a great lifetime value, and we're not one of these flash in the pan products that people buy for a month. Our typical customer stays for almost a year and a half on average, which is something we're super proud of. But yeah, there's been a lot of challenges, and I guess the biggest one for me from a personal aspect was I'm not a business guy. I understand the business. I'm really proud of what I've learned on the fly and kind of my gut instinct, but I don't have any formal training. And we had this crazy business that was growing super fast, and I had my founder hat on and my CEO hat on, and we had 6 staff and 7 staff and 8 staff, and I'm signing office leases and all of this kind of stuff. But I've come from a fitness background, not a business background. So one of the biggest and most important turning points, I think, was just this recognition of understanding what I'm good at, and most importantly, understanding what I'm not, and putting good people around me, from CEO to chief product officer to, chief marketing officer, just having some really high quality, good heads that I can bounce ideas off, and it just allows me to do what I do best. And that's, come up with new concepts, speak, daily to our members, and be the face of the business from a marketing and a PR perspective. And when all of the other sort of legal and contractual and administrative responsibilities were not allowing me to do that to the level I needed to, that was a real eye-opener to the fact that I needed to get good people around me. And we've now got 30 full-time staff in the business, and it's a very different business to what it was, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sam, at what point was that you sort of had that realization that you need to do things maybe differently, or you need to bring people in to do certain things? Because you're 100% right. You can get tied up in business at a certain level, and there's so many things you can be a part of. But if you don't enjoy them, firstly, it's not productive, and it's one of those things. There's other people out there who are better at that. At what point did you get to where you sort of went, I've got to change the way I do this?
Yeah, it was probably about the 2-year mark. So at that point, I had a couple of people helping, or few people, advice from everywhere, but it was still a bit of a dog's breakfast, and it was, I don't know, for me, I needed to find the right person that I thought would be that wing person to take the business to the next level, that cared about it as much as I did, and also then the trust factor. And when I found that person, and that guy was a guy called David, who's been our CEO, and still our CEO to this day, that's where, I don't know, it's always, everyone sort of says, you and ah and you procrastinate about making these big moves, and then when you do, the first thing you say is, I just wish I'd done this earlier. And that was definitely me. I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing? And it was like you said, I wasn't enjoying working as much because I was spending 30 or 40% of my time doing shit that I hated doing, and then getting frustrated that I couldn't be doing the stuff that I wanted to do. But once
you free yourself, right?
it totally freed me. It was a very freeing experience, and just, I mean, I don't think of this as a job. Like, I love coming to work. I mean, when we did the merger, it was like, oh, Sam, obviously we need you to stick around. We're not really interested in merging with you if you aren't interested in the next chapter. And I'm like, I love what I do. You got nothing to worry about there. I'm not going anywhere. So it's been really exciting.
If you were to go back in time, 2016, when you're starting the business again, knowing what you know now, but starting it the same way, what would you do differently, if anything?
Oh no, I definitely would. Two things. I would have gotten that team around me much sooner. I wouldn't have waited so long, and got so sort of and been drowning like I was. And I would have got advice sooner on how we should be running the business for an exit. And the reason and I'm sure many founders can relate to this, but the thought of selling my baby made me sick.
Yeah.
So even like the suggestion of, you should talk to advisors or whatever it might be, I was like, why? I got all defensive, I got, what, selling the business. And it wasn't about selling the business. It was just making sure that as early as possible, we were running the business to maximize its value. And when you have a subscription tech business, someone without the business acumen that I didn't have didn't know that it would be valued on revenue rather than profit. So I was very much about driving the business for profit. Still growth. I invested a lot of money back into growing our team and still spending more money on marketing. But at about the 4-year mark, we had that conversation with an advisory group, and they said, look, if you're looking at comparables in this space, you're highly likely to be valued on rev, not on profit. So you guys should be taking less money home and tipping every cent back into profitable growth, growth from a marketing perspective. And that really shifted how we did things dramatically once we'd been given that advice. And it meant the value that was placed on the business was significantly higher when that time did arrive. And we probably could have had a more valuable business if perhaps we'd been doing that earlier. I mean, I'm not sitting here with a great regret. I think we probably shifted just in time, but it would have, I think we could have started to drive the business more for revenue than profit a bit earlier, and even got some kind of investment earlier on from a cash flow perspective to help us do that if that had been part of the plan.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that sort of, you're talking VC or private equity type investment in the earlier days, that type of thing?
Potentially, yeah. I think I had this. I was a bit protective about giving up equity, without really understanding how that equity perhaps could have been used, or how perhaps the value that not just the money, but that resource perhaps could have provided from either adding resource into the business or purely an advice perspective could have provided. But
pros and cons with that, though, isn't there?
yeah, there is, and I hear as many horror stories as I do wonderful stories. So I say that with trepidation. I think sometimes being a bit wary when it is your baby, and I've really felt like this is my one chance. It's my one chance at business success at this scale, and without getting too philosophical, I do feel like it's the thing that I was put on this earth to do, and I didn't want to stuff that up. So
yeah, okay,
not letting too many people interfere has been something that early on was something that it might have held us back in certain ways, but I think it probably helped us in others because we were laser focused and not distracted, and everyone within the business was very, very passionate and kind of all on the same page.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, VC definitely has its place, but you are giving away levels of control. There are certain requirements that go with that, including distractions, things that distract you from the business. Is the same as something as a company listing on the stock exchange and that sort of stuff. There's another layer of accountability and requirements that go with it. So the VCs, my general thinking is if you don't need to, if the business can grow pretty well without that, then you're probably better off not bringing in extra people if you don't need to. If it's going to help you accelerate where you want to get to, and it might not otherwise get the scale you need to as quickly as you need to, then take on the new money because they do offer lots of advantages. But if you don't necessarily need it and you're generating revenue, that control factor is pretty important in terms of autonomy, even the way you want to do things, not having to answer anybody as you're going along. You can do it. You might make mistakes, but they're your mistakes. And you move on very quickly.
And I think that's part of a tech startup like this. Your agility and your speed of execution is paramount to your success. And if there is all those layers of administrative reporting and everything needs to be signed off, and it would naturally slow things down. That one, I think I would enjoy the journey a lot less, and two, it could definitely have slowed growth opportunities. So I do reflect on these things, not with regret, as I said, but I do think it's interesting to sort of look back and sort of say what might have been when you have these fork in the road moments that even at the time you perhaps don't even realize they're fork in the road moments till you look back. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's all part of having David as the CEO next to me throughout this whole process. He came from a corporate background, investment background, and was pretty well versed. It was more just him getting up to speed in this specific tech space, SaaS space, as we went along. But yeah, he's always been a brilliant sort of sounding board and someone who has brought great ideas, but always with a level of respect, and sort of said, look, Sam, I'm the new kid on the block here. This is your business. These are ultimately your decisions, but this is something that I think we should discuss and we should consider.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest strength was from start to exit?
To be honest, I think my greatest strength has been specific to the program, and that has been a really intimate understanding of what the customer wants and needs. And then I'm kind of the translator, I guess, back to the hub of the business. There's we've got brilliant tech people and brilliant product people and brilliant marketing people even, but I don't, respectfully to them, think they understand who our customer is and what they want and what they need to the level that I do, whether that's from a marketing perspective pre-purchase or whether that's when they're in our ecosystem from a retention perspective, from a results perspective. I mean, we have always evolved our product based on the customer's wants and needs, but I think it takes a certain skill to really understand what that is, to cut through the noisy minority, to look at the behavior data, to really immerse yourself within your customer database and understand, what's happening with your competitors, what do they want, what are their changing needs, and continually give that to them. I think that's why we had the initial success, because I'd learned all this stuff over 15 years of doing 60, 70 PT appointments a week. And I'd kind of, without realized it, built up a lot of IP in my head that I was able to put finally all into one place. As much as there was great spin-off off The Bachelor and that kind of stuff, you still need a good product. People are going to come in and go out pretty quick if what you're giving them is crap. So, I think we really launched with a great product, one of the best out there, but we've continued to evolve and always sort of stay ahead of the pack now that the pack's getting so big. But I really do think that has been my probably my greatest strength.
I was going to say, because how much of that insight into your customers is, data driven versus just understanding the psychology of your clients and your customers based on all those years of experience? Because I find it myself. You can look at various data points and that type of thing in terms of investors and clients. But when I talk to people, I know the type of people they are because I've been around it for years and years. So you just really understand their hopes and dreams, that what drives them, what they're worried about, that part of it. Is that more that side of things than the data side, or how do you balance the two?
No, I think they're both important. I mean, what's interesting? It's probably half and half. The data is absolutely important. You got to really keep your finger on the pulse. But I think even how that data is interpreted varies. Like I can be sitting in the boardroom with my tech team and we can be staring at the same dashboard, and what they see and what I see are very, very different. The next feature that we build on our app or the next marketing that we move based on conversion data that we're interpreting varies considerably, based on the gut instinct that you have analyzing that data. And, it's good. I mean, it sometimes turns into really robust, healthy debate. I don't sit here and go, well, ultimately it's my decision or any crap like that. I'm really interested to hear other people's opinions. And there's often times when I hadn't seen it like that. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm too close to it. But I think early on, those gut moves based on understanding and it is, it's a level of, I sound like a dickhead. I hate saying, what my strengths are, but I feel like it's an emotional intelligence, where you can read.
No, 100%.
You can read people and you get what they want almost before they tell you. And if you can continually surprise and delight your customer by giving them this stuff that they need, but they haven't even, articulated yet that they need it, there's something pretty powerful about that. And I feel like we've always been able to do that. I mean, it's also just a level of care and a level of vulnerability. The 28 family is really an extension of my family. They've come along on the journey with my kids growing up and me getting married and all this kind of stuff. And we don't hide any of that stuff. It's really, I know as a trainer, the connection you can make with your client when you let them into your world a little bit is really powerful. And, I didn't do that strategically. It's just the kind of person that I am. But we've had so much feedback over the journey that, oh, Sam, we just like how real you are. And I feel like I know you, even though I've never met you. And, I think if you can create that level of connection in a digital world, because that's the kind of the skepticism that some people have, how can you do that in a digital space the same way you can do it in a face-to-face space? I mean, I feel it's almost impossible to duplicate, but we've done a damn good job at getting pretty close.
And how do you do that? Like from your perspective, what's the key couple of things that you need to pay attention to be able to sort of communicate like that with people?
Heaps and heaps of video content that is driven by what our customers have questions that they're asking. lots and lots of live workouts, Q&A, cooking sessions, face-to-face catch-ups in every state around Australia. You know, these things that we've done over the journey to keep the community tight. We're very big on encouraging them to connect to each other as well. You know, there's you know, we've got 70,000 people in our closed Facebook community, and they meet each other for runs on the weekend. They travel interstate. They pick each other up from the airport. They do their 28 workouts together. Like, it's a real tight knit family, and they have all kind of had this moment where they've decided they need to take better care of themselves. 28 is the vehicle in which they've chosen to do that with, but the friendships that they've made along the way is sort of why they stay, and you know, why they feel like they really belong to something. You know, it's yeah, it's special. You know, I look at footy clubs and that kind of thing. You know, like,
Yeah.
natural bond when you find out someone else is a Hawthorn supporter or whatever it might be, where you know, and it's sort of that. It's, you know, like, they see each other running around in their 28 merch and that kind of stuff, and there's an instant little nod or smile, or they catch up with each other, and yeah, it's just, I mean, that's something that has happened relatively organically. I think that's a hard thing to fabricate, but it's something that I'm most proud of as well.
Yeah, so you should be. I think that's awesome to have created a community like that where you've got those sort of links that you're not having to facilitate. It's part of that community and that group. That's an awesome outcome. What's the best advice you've been given along the way?
Well, it's I reckon one of the first business books I was ever given was Dan Gerber and the E-Myth, and, you know, don't work in the business, work on the business. And I feel that was always what I was trying to do as a trainer and never was able to succeed with. But it's funny how it's sat with me always. And combining that advice with know what you're good at, but also know what you're not good at, and, you know, and be able to let go a little bit, not be a control freak, it has been really important as well. Like, just letting go of responsibility, um, having a level of trust to the team so that you can do what you like doing and what you're best at, and you don't burn yourself out. You know, I yeah, it's the kids have been really good for me from a sort of personal level. I was a bit of a workaholic, and having children and wanting to spend time with them, and not, you know, my dad wasn't able to spend very much time with us when we were kids because he was a workaholic. And I know it's something that now in his 60s he talks about regretting. I didn't want to have those same regrets. And I actually think it helped me get a much better work-life balance once with the support of my family. So I know that's a bit of a mishmash answer to your question, Dion, but yeah,
No, it's a real answer, right? I mean,
yeah,
kids will give you perspective, that's for sure, and they're not kids for long.
perspective to what's important and what's not important. I always had this idea that if I have a week off or I'm not there all the time, the world's going to end.
Yeah, okay.
I was just holding on way too tight. And then you have kids and it kind of forces you to let go. And then you realize, nothing changed. Everything was fine. And it reinforces to you that things will be okay. And that wasn't an instant let go and then I could let go forever. That was a layering process for me. But over the course of a year or two, and, you know, having these wonderful people around me to help, it was a great realization of letting go, and things will be okay, and that there are more important things than being at work 24/7.
And how important was that? Because you talk about like not being a control freak. Were you a little bit that way inclined in the earlier days?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Okay.
Totally. No, it was horrible. Horrible. Yeah, just had to be part of every single meeting.
Yeah.
And it was just not, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't productive. There were times I was going, I'm not really adding any value. Why am I insisting on being here? You know, your calendar just gets filled up literally day after day after day with meeting after meeting, and you're not having that creative space. You're not having that downtime. So understanding where I do need to be and where I don't need to be, and being able to let go was really healthy for me. It was also really good for the business.
Yeah, you can't grow. You can't grow if you're going to keep being like that in that same way.
Yeah, I was strangling it without realizing I was. So it's been a good learning.
But that's part of the emotional intelligence part that you're talking about before, right? Because it's very easy.
A bit sooner.
Yeah, but I mean, we've probably, anyone who's successful has probably got a little bit of that inclination anyway.
Yeah,
But there's plenty of people who don't end up as successful because they just can't let go. And so it does end up, sometimes people don't learn those lessons that you've learned that actually help create something far bigger. So it's no small feat. You know what I mean? When you're predisposed to wanting to, make things perfect and make things right. And I'm making assumptions here about why people want to control things, because they want certain level, they've got certain standards, and it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes you sort of start to bring things closer and want to be more in charge of stuff, but you've still got to let go and trust people to do stuff, because otherwise you can't grow, but trial and error. A couple of last quick questions, Sam. Who is the business people that inspire you? Why?
It's funny from a branding perspective. I always loved Janine Ellis at Boost Juice. Just as a customer, almost two things I loved. I loved the brand. I loved the fun and the energy that it always evoked. And then I've always been a believer that if your menu's not simple, it's not a good business. And too many people complicate things with too many offerings, too many different price points, too many tiers. And I've always sort of looked at, and I know it's a literal sense of a menu in her case, but I've always really, really sort of looked at that, and I like that. And then I don't know, I read lots of books. I listen to lots of podcasts. Simon Sinek's someone that I listen to a lot. Having a why. That's been someone. And I don't know if he'd even consider himself a business coach necessarily, but I just think the way he articulates how important it is to care about what you do, and how important it is to build a team that cares about what they do. And if you're all bought in to the why, the what will sort of take care of itself. And I'm a massive believer in that. I'm super proud that we have built a very successful business from a commercial perspective, almost because I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder that I was always the personal trainer who was never reaching the heights of some of my friends and colleagues. And I wanted to prove people wrong, which, I don't know if that's right or that's wrong. Remember, my dad said to me, chips on shoulders, put chips in pockets. And it's always one of those weird little quotes that stayed with me.
I haven't heard that one before. That's quite good.
I was a bit frustrated with things, but it's sort of something that's always sat with me. But there was always that from a personal perspective. But what always superseded that was the fact that we're helping change people's lives. And we got to come into work every day, and the Facebook page would be just filled with new success stories and testimonials and thank yous. And, that was so heartfelt and so beautiful. And, we spend a couple of hours every single week sharing testimonials and success stories from within the program. We still do that to this day, just reminding ourselves of why we do what we do and how powerful it is and how proud we should be. When you can combine, financial success with passion and with something that you're super proud of, it's a pretty powerful combination.
Yeah. What about any particular quotes or mantras that you live by? Anything come to mind?
Well, I won't say the chips on shoulder, put chips on, chips in pockets. But I look at our mantra with 28 from people getting into shape. And I often talk about this. There's so many parallels between building a successful business and getting your wellness on track. I think is progress, not perfection. I think, particularly when you've got a tech business, if you're launching with a perfect product, you're launching too late. You've got to try, you got to learn, you got to be quick, you got to be agile, you got to let go a little bit to having this perfect product always, or this perfect idea of how something should feel or something should look. So yeah, that's something I really do live by. I live by it with my own wellness attitude. I still love a beer and a piece of chocolate and a glass of red, but I also like to take care of myself. And I think that understanding that there is so much more to life than just business, and celebrating the milestones and enjoy, with your friends and your family along the way has been something that I was never that good at, but I'm getting better and better at. And the more I do it, the more I see the significance and the importance of it. So, I think, progress, not perfection, and celebrate the wins along the way, not just the final destination.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think it gets easier to do that as you get older as well. I think you get more perspective as you get a little bit older, and even having kids and those sorts of things does change your thinking. Like compared to 20 years ago, my mindset similar, different to celebrating the journey rather than just like got to get there. And as soon as I'd achieved something, I'd be on to the next thing and had forgotten that last thing anyway. So, and it's not the best way to really live because you want to be able to enjoy that journey.
I think it's very hard to do when you haven't had any success. Because I'd had what could only really be called a failure with Gecko, and I was so I was a bit financially stressed, and I was so determined to sort of prove myself. I found it really difficult to accept what was being given to me. It was great advice. It was once I had a certain level of comfort in my own skin and was really proud of where we were going. I don't mean, merging the business, but just having levels of, particular milestones along the way that I was able to finally, I wasn't listening to that advice. It was falling on deaf ears a bit. And when I finally sort of listened to that, it was this real penny drop moment. I was like, oh, that's what people have been telling me all this time and how right they were. But it was funny until I reached a particular level of success or satisfaction in my own weird head, I found it really difficult to accept that advice properly.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic old the teacher will arrive when the student's ready type of thing. It's true though, isn't it? It's been said the whole time, but the teacher was right there all the time. But it was when you're ready to understand it, it all becomes crystal clear. So, Sam, what's next for the business? What's the future hold?
Well, to be honest, we really want the 28 to be, I guess, the flywheel for other things in the wellness space, whether it be, DNA, personalized wellness platforms. I'd love to do more in different markets, different, in the corporate space. I mean, first and foremost, it is continue to grow 28, and that is absolutely my baby. But, there's lots of different markets that we don't cater for. Really excited about our launch into the retail space. The company's called 28 Go. We'll be in 950 Woolworths stores in November with 16 products on shelves, and it's bloody exciting. And again, it's just how do we use this great 28 hub to continue to help people with wellness? And everything's born from our customers. Sam, there's so many protein powders on the market. I never know which one's a good one or a bad one, or how do I decipher between the ingredients or whatever it might be. And it's hard, and they've all got these clever marketing messages. And so we've created a really high-end quality product that we're super proud of that'll be going into stores. And we know that the 28 family will be where it starts, but we also know it'll, extend well beyond that. So, look, yeah, definitely not done yet. Super excited to continue to help people on their health journey, be it through tech platforms or retail products. And sort of understand and utilize these new technologies as they're coming along. I think the DNA stuff's fascinating and really powerful, and I think the AI stuff's really interesting too. To really personalize in real time people's online wellness experience. I mean, it'll be used in almost every facet, but when I look at it through our lens, I can see some significant advantages that it's going to provide.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thanks very much for joining us on the show. It's been really, really interesting and really excited to see what happens next.
Thanks, Dion. I'll be following you guys closely, and thanks for your time.